Welcome back to the Beonby Show. This is another spontaneous podcast, and we would like to introduce a very new, very special member to this podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Dan. I'm Ben's brother. It's
Yes.
a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. It's a great honor.
Yes, no problem. This is on both of our free wills.
No, I was held at gunpoint to be here.
Yeah, that too. What are we discussing today?
What podcast episode is this?
This is the fifth one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Or is it? I don't remember. No, yeah, it's the fifth one. Yeah.
So, we were brainstorming some ideas of what we could talk about here.
Yeah.
What do you think we should start off with? I don't know what's on your list. What's good to talk about?
Well, one of my ideas that I had was because it is now season's greetings, and it's because it's winter, and it's the season to be jolly. I feel like we should talk about it.
Okay. What are you jolly for this holiday season?
I'm just excited to spend time with family and to receive gifts and to just hang out and not have to go to school.
Yeah. Well, yesterday was the first night of Hanukkah. You got that nice little Apple Watch. How are you feeling about it? Did it meet all of your expectations?
All of them were met. And I now receive alerts every 3 seconds.
What are they for? You just gotta get up?
Yeah, get up and move a little.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
How often does it tell you to do that? Does it senses when you're sitting down, you gotta get up and...
Yeah, I don't know how long it is because I only got one yesterday. But I got one alert that was breathe for a minute, and then the other one was stand up and move.
Huh. Breathe for a minute, and it's tracking that? Or
Yeah.
it's just telling you to do that?
Or both.
Yeah. Yeah, it can only measure your heart rate, right?
I mean, you also press start, and you start breathing. And
Did you do it?
No.
Oh my god.
I don't follow rules.
Well, you got an Apple Watch. I mean, now you gotta do it. It's in the contract. It's in the terms and conditions.
Yeah, I didn't really agree to those.
That's fair. Yeah. Throw those out. Never sign them. Never read them.
Yes, I did that. Exactly.
Yeah, but that's pretty sweet. Apple Watch. I don't really get the point of that. I don't know. It doesn't seem super appealing to me. That's not something that I would like. You know? I mean, you and me used to have the same watch. Up until yesterday.
Yeah.
We had a nice Timex Ironman watch.
Is that what it's called? The Ironman?
Yeah. It's pretty great. It's waterproof up to 100 meters. Water
Does it
resistant.
say that on the watch?
Water resistant.
Does it
I
say
think there's
that?
a difference between water resistant and waterproof. I think water resistance is not as good as waterproof.
Yeah.
But yeah, it says right here, water resistant, 100 meters, WR 100 meters.
Huh.
Tells you the time.
So does this?
Tells you the date.
So does this?
Has a stopwatch, timer, alarm clock.
Yeah.
It's got everything you need.
Yeah, so does this.
It's pretty nice. Battery to last forever. And we both had the same watch, and you decided to swap in favor of this Apple Watch that tells you to breathe.
Well, that wasn't my decision.
I can figure that out on my own, how to breathe. But I guess you need a watch for that, so...
No, it just tells me I don't follow the directions.
But yeah, what else are you thinking about thinking about the holidays? What do you think? How are they going so far?
Going pretty good. Still got 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Think about 2 weeks, yeah. Just excited and grateful for everything that we have and are fortunate to have.
Yeah, it's pretty nice to have the family together.
Yeah.
Doing lots of activities.
Yeah. Very good.
Nice. It's great. It's not too cold.
It's not too cold. It will become colder very soon.
Not going to be a white Christmas, though. That's unfortunate.
It's not going to snow?
No.
Oh.
I don't think so. I think it's going to be in the 40s.
For the whole time?
All of Christmas? Yeah, I don't think it's snowing on Christmas.
Wow.
Yeah.
How interesting.
Yeah. What else you got on your... What other ideas you got? What else is on your list?
That was basically it. I was just we
should talk about the holidays.
Obviously we're not gonna do that forever, but like it's just an interesting topic point for a little discussion because it's such a prominent time of year.
How does this holiday season compare to previous ones, you think?
There are no other holiday seasons.
But
This
previous
year.
years.
Oh yeah, I mean it just started, so we're gonna have to see. But I think it's gonna be good because it's been good every year. Excuse me.
Yeah. Huh. But there's always change, right? So there's gotta be differences between like this year than last year, for example. Do you remember last year's holiday season pretty well? Winter break?
Not too well, no. No, not really, no. How about you?
Not super well. Yeah, it's kind of crazy how, like, when you're in the moment, everything feels so real, and things are happening. Like, right now we're having this conversation, right? And it feels so alive, right? But, and somehow you kind of, you're not always thinking this, but kind of in the back of your head, you kind of just expect that everything that's happening right now, you're going to remember in the future, right? Yeah. Because it's just like right now, it's real. This is what's happening, right?
Yeah, that's what you're doing.
Yeah, but like most of this stuff, you're forgetting, right? Like how much of your day today that you did, you're going to remember like a month from now. Like what did you eat last Friday for lunch? Do you remember what you ate last Friday?
It was probably a sandwich.
But you're just guessing because you're so consistent with what you're eating, right?
Yeah, I don't exactly know.
But like for something that's like inconsistent, right? Like 3 days ago, what were you doing at 11 a.m.? You have no idea.
Yeah, I don't
Probably,
know.
right? Yeah, so it's weird how like all these things just kind of fade. Like certain crazy things you remember, or I don't know, certain random
things. Yeah, I
things
memorize really random things. Like I know how many yards and feet there are in a mile, but I don't remember what I did yesterday. In case you're wondering, there's 5,280 feet and 1,760 yards.
Huh. I was wondering that.
Yeah. Just a little fact.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
It's good to educate, the broader audience.
Yeah, it also can lead in more sponsorships.
Right.
Sponsors.
By the foot and yard committee.
Yeah.
They're really happy that you name dropped feet and yards.
Shout out to the foot and yard committee. We'd love for you to sponsor us. Because we love you.
I hear they give out good sponsorships.
They do.
They have t-shirts, underwear. Yeah. Branded foot and yard underwear. It's great.
Huh.
100% wool.
100%
Washable,
wow.
recyclable.
Machine washable?
Yeah.
Can you put it in your dishwasher?
I think you can, yeah. Specifically from that brand. Only if you're sponsored by Foot and Yard Society.
Oh, they make specific.
There's a membership fee. Okay. It's like Costco.
Okay.
But
I mean, if it's worth it, like if you're getting machine washable, dishwasherable, 100% wool underwear.
Yeah, you should reach out to them.
Yeah,
I mean, they're probably gonna reach out after they hear you name dropping this stuff now on their own. But send us a couple samples.
Yeah, and I'd love to work with you. And what do they do though?
I'm just kidding. It's not a real thing.
I know, but like, if it were to exist,
what would they be doing?
I
don't know. Promoting using feet instead of promoting the use of yards as opposed to meters.
And using feet instead of centimeters.
I guess so. Is that the thing that you would use? What's the equivalent of foot in the metric system?
I have no idea.
There's a meter.
I think it might be meters.
Probably meters, yeah. It's like 3 feet roughly, right?
Yeah, like 36 inches. Yeah, roughly.
No, that's a yard. A yard is 3 feet,
never mind,
right?
Never mind. Yeah, meters.
But a meter is roughly
same like
3 feet. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think anyone uses feet.
Yeah, I guess it should exist. Then, but it doesn't. But it should.
Yeah. It probably should. Anyway. So, one interesting thing I was thinking about recently that I wanted to talk about is I read this essay that this guy Isaac Asimov wrote.
He sounds Russian.
He is Russian. Yeah, he was born. I don't remember where in Russia he was born, But have you heard of Isaac Asimov before?
Can't say I have.
Yeah, so he's this. He's most well known for writing science fiction. He's like a really famous science fiction author, if not like one of the most famous science fiction authors. And his most famous like book series are, one of them is called the Foundation series, which is like a series of books, like just like Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And then there's another one called the Robot series, and it's just like all these like futuristic stories and books about like these super intelligent robots.
Wait, didn't he write iRobot?
Yeah, so he wrote iRobot,
Yeah,
which was turned into a movie. Have you seen that one? It was with Will Smith.
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, it's like all right. I think it came out like in the mid 2000s or something. It's like an okay action movie. They didn't really like it. It doesn't have the feel of his actual story. Like they took a lot of liberties with it.
Yeah,
and
and
made it a lot more like Hollywood and
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the problem with a lot of adaptations.
Yeah.
They just fail to capture the essence of what the book is trying to achieve. Right.
I mean, it's still entertaining, kind of, but like, it's not the same thing as reading the story. Anyway, so he's like a famous science fiction writer. But he wrote like what people would call like hard science fiction, which means that he was very like thorough, and he would like, it would be some futuristic world, say, and he would be writing about it, and it's fiction, but he would try to be as scientific as possible in that world. Like he wouldn't break any known laws of like physics or anything like that.
I guess science fiction kind of works with that then.
I guess so, yeah. But I guess our other science fiction authors, like depending on what they're doing, they can take a lot more liberties and like bend some rules here and there.
Maybe break them completely.
But maybe that starts going into fantasy or something. I don't know. Anyway, but he was also like, the reason that he was so like thorough and meticulous is because he was also a professor of biochemistry at this university. I forget where, but he was like a legit scientist.
Science fiction scientist, biochemist.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so, but he was most well known for his books. But people would like write him letters about these different things, and he would respond to them. And he published a lot of these letters. As a group, they were called like. Well, his most famous one of those letters, I believe, is called The Relativity of Wrong, which is this essay.
Relativity of Wrong?
Relativity of Wrong, yeah. Which is this essay that I thought was pretty interesting.
What does it talk about?
So basically, it was a letter that he wrote in response to this guy that sent him a letter, and he was like yelling and screaming about how like, look man, like, throughout history, every century, there are these scientists who come around and they're like, we think we understand the universe, right? Or we understand some aspect of the universe. And in the next century, everything is proven wrong, right? So how can you be so sure of yourself? Like, because Asimov was like writing some essays online about just like the state of science or something, And this guy wrote to him and he's like, how can you be so sure? Like, every century, these scientists come up with something. The next century, everyone is proving them wrong, right? So Isaac Asimov writes this letter back to him entitled The Relativity of Wrong. And basically, the basic idea is that right and wrong are not these absolute concrete things. It's not like a 1 or a 0 or black and white, and that there's a relativity of wrong. So some things can be more wrong than others. It's like shades of gray. It's not black and white, okay? So the way he like kind of describes this is he talks about humanity's understanding of the shape of the earth, right? So historically, like the earliest civilizations used to think of the earth as flat, right?
Yeah,
flat earth theory.
Yeah, and then also Christopher Columbus did. Like, he was major.
Is that true? I mean,
yeah,
I think
he thought he was flat, but then he was like, if the world is round, we go this way to India.
Right. Well, no, because he was sailing out west, right, from Europe, and he just didn't know. I think he knew the world was round. Maybe I'm wrong here, but my understanding was that he did know the Earth was round, but he just didn't know of the existence of like the Americas, and so he thought he was going to go around the world and hit India. I think maybe I'm wrong. Is that not true?
Wait, no, I think I saw a video on this. He was like, yeah, I think the world's flat, but if this new theory that it is round is true, we go this way to India, right? Because he thought it was over here, but he just didn't know America existed.
Right. And he bumped into it. And when he lands there, he's like, oh, this is India. So these guys are Indians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he pillaged
Conquered and pillaged.
Conquered, pillaged, killed, and diseased them.
You're right. Right. My favorite combo, the triple threat.
Yeah.
Anyway,
historically accurate.
What was I saying?
You people used to think the Earth was flat.
Right. So people originally, like the earliest civilizations, used to think the Earth was flat, right? And it's not because these guys were idiots. They're not dummies. Like, there's a lot of good evidence to support the idea that the Earth was flat. So, like, obviously, like, there's, like, they knew there was hills and valleys and stuff like that. But, like, let's say, you know, so it's, like, kind of bumpy here and there. But, like, let's say you even all those areas out.
It's flat.
It's pretty flat. Like, you know, as a generalization, it's flat. And also, if you were to look at, like, bodies of water, like a pond or a lake or something, it's on a quiet day, like when there aren't waves or anything or ripples, it looks really flat.
Yeah.
So there's the good evidence in support of it being flat. And so another way, like, to think about that is to talk about, like, the curvature of the Earth. So with the flat Earth theory, what you say about the curvature of the Earth is that it's 0. So for every, for example, mile that you'd walk on the Earth, the amount that it would bend is 0. It doesn't bend at all. So up to infinity, you're just... Well, maybe, I don't know if they actually thought that Earth had, like, an end point or if it just kept going. But basically, there's no curvature, right? 0 per mile.
Yeah.
So then, there's this guy Aristotle. You know who Aristotle is?
Yeah, of course. I know who Aristotle is.
So there was some evidence starting to pile up that, like, oh, maybe this doesn't make sense. And Aristotle summarized this stuff in, like, 350 BC, like, over 2,000 years ago. And so one thing was that, like, people would look at the shadow of the Earth hitting the moon during eclipses. So, like, the sun would be shining on the Earth would be casting a shadow on the moon because the Earth was in between, like, the moon and the sun during an eclipse.
Yeah.
And then if you would look at the moon, you would see the shadow of the Earth. And
it looks around, right?
And it's like the arc of a circle. Yeah, the outline's a circle. And that, so that, like, that doesn't make any sense, right? If it's a flat Earth, how can it be a circle? I mean, there maybe could be some explanations there, but it's, like, a little weird, right?
Yeah.
And then, so that was one thing that, like, didn't jive very well with the flat Earth theory. The second thing was that if you were standing on shore and you would be watching a ship sail away from you towards the horizon, it eventually would slowly, like, dip down below the horizon, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is weird. Like, that doesn't jive.
I've seen things like that happen before, yeah.
Right. And people knew that, like, these ships aren't falling off the edge of the Earth because, like, the people on the ship would go over the horizon and come back, right? But if you're standing and watching that ship from the perspective of someone on shore, it looks like it's slowly dipping down, like, almost sinking below the horizon. So that doesn't make any sense with, like, a flat Earth theory. And so finally, like, 100 years after Aristotle summarized these kind of weird findings that didn't jive with the flat Earth theory, there was another bloke, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Eratosthenes or something like that. And he was another Greek guy. And basically what he did is he had, like, these sticks, and he would go around the Earth and he would put the stick in the ground. Mm-hmm. And at the same time every day, so the sun was in the same position, he would measure the shadow that the stick cast on the ground, like what the length of that shadow is.
Smart.
Yeah. And so, like, if it was a flat Earth and you put sticks all over the Earth and you measure the shadow, if it was a flat Earth and the sun is in the same position, what do you think the length of the shadow would be?
The same,
yeah. But it wasn't. And basically, like, as you would move from the equator up north, the shadow would get longer and longer because the angle that the sun is hitting them at changes, you know?
That's a pretty interesting way to figure out.
Yeah.
If it was flat or not.
Yeah, these guys are brilliant. It's crazy. Yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing that they figure these things out. Yeah. You know? Like, now we just take it for granted, but... Sorry, go ahead.
Weren't there, like, really severe punishments, like, from the church if you, like, started yelling about how the Earth wasn't flat? Like, some people were, like, killed.
I've heard that too. I don't know how true necessarily that is, but
I mean, I'm sure, like, history, I don't doubt it.
I don't doubt it. Yeah, people aren't fans of new ideas being thrown around that they weren't used to. And I'm sure that was like a, you know, like a revolutionary idea. You know, that's, like, mind blowing. That, like, your whole, like, your intuition, like, your common sense is like, oh, the Earth is flat, and someone's telling you, like, no, actually it's a sphere. Anyway, back to this guy Eratosthenes and his sticks. So if you know where you were like if you knew the distance between where you place these sticks and you know the difference between the lengths of the shadows that they're casting, you can figure out the circumference of the Earth, assuming it's a sphere. Yeah. And so he figured out that it's 25,000 miles in circumference, which is actually like super accurate. And this was 2,000 years ago. It's like very close to that. Yeah, isn't it like
25,000, like 900 or something?
It's like off by like less than 100 miles or something. Yeah. I think that's correct. I think that's right. Yeah, something like that.
Oh yeah,
I think
24,900 something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So, which is crazy because it was 2,000 years ago, and the way he did that is by measuring the lengths of shadows of sticks. Right? Yeah. And so if you know it's a sphere, you know it's 25,000 miles, you can also figure out what the curvature is for every given mile. And so the curvature he figured out is 0.000126 per mile, which is the same thing as 8 inches per mile. So if you're walking, on average, if you're walking a mile on the Earth, on average, the surface of the Earth will bend away from you, will bend downward from you. It'll curve away from you at 8 inches per mile, right? Which is crazy. So like we look at the flat Earth theory, we're like, oh my God, it's so horribly, terrifically wrong. They're so stupid. They're so dumb. But the reality is like they were wrong, but they were nearly right, right?
Yeah, when they were also very smart.
Yeah. So they were saying the curvature of the Earth is 0 per mile. But the sphere theory is saying, well, actually, it's a sphere, and the curvature of the Earth is basically 0 per mile. It's 0.000126 per mile.
Yeah.
Right? So then everyone's happy, and there's the sphere theory for a while, and it's all well and good.
And then more flat earthers come around.
Yeah, the flat earthers are never going to go away. No, but then there's chaos, because then people start looking at similar kind of things with the shadows of Jupiter and Saturn, like what kind of shadows they're casting. And when they look at their shadows, you'd expect it. Now people think it's a sphere, right? At least if you know about this stuff, you think it's going to be a sphere. And so the shadow that they should cast is a circle, but in reality, what they're casting is an ellipsis. An ellipse. Oh. Which is like an ellipse is like a stretched out circle. It's like a fat circle. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Almost like an oval.
Yeah, it's right? Like an oval. Yeah. So it's kind of ovally. And so people are like, what the heck? That doesn't make sense with that doesn't like fit the sphere theory.
Yeah.
So there's this guy, Isaac Newton. You hear this guy? He's one of the most famous, if not like the most famous physicist, right?
Apple falls far from
so like in the 17th century, this guy was saying that because of the laws of gravity, from our understanding of what matter does, it like clumps together, and so the shape of matter should be a sphere. Like if you have tons of matter, it's gonna compact into like a sphere, but it'll only be a sphere if it's not rotating. And if it's rotating, there's another force beyond the force of gravity. It's called the centrifugal force. And what that means is it's gonna like kind of bulge out at the equator, and it'll make it look like it'll make it look like a ellipse. The shadow of it should be an ellipse, you know.
That makes
so
sense.
Actually, the Earth, because of the rotation, it's kind of like bulging out at the equator, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've seen and read articles and pictures about it, and I always wondered why, because they never explained. But I guess that makes sense.
Yeah,
now.
It's like very flat or very very small. Like it's not super obvious like that, but it's basically a sphere. But to be technically right, it's not. It's what they call like I don't know how to pronounce it actually. It's like a spheroid thing.
Spheroid?
Yeah. And so what they're saying is like now with this new, they're like, okay, flat Earth theory, terribly, horribly wrong. Not actually right. It's like wrong, but nearly right. The next theory was a sphere theory. It was also wrong, but closer to being right. And then the next theory was this spheroid theory that with the bulging out at the equator. And what they say, the curvature of the Earth is not 8 inches per mile, but it's varying depending how close you are to the equator. And it varies between like 7.97 inches per mile to 8.02 inches per mile. Okay.
Oh, wow. What a difference.
But even that thing is wrong, right? Because once we had satellites in space, they could estimate like the gravity of the Earth, and they started noticing like, oh, actually there are that's like not totally right, and we can make improvements to this. So they're always like refining this type of stuff.
So there's always been like new and new theories like throughout the course of time, that there's always been like, we had the flat earth theory, then the sphere, then the spheroid, and now like just it's always been like refining, and maybe we're even not right still. Like maybe there's something we don't know.
Well, I think that was Azimov's point, is that we're never going to be right. It's just we're getting less and less wrong. And so the way it works is like you have all of these facts about the world or reality, right? You have all these observations. You see something and you're like, oh, that's interesting. And then you're trying to understand the world, so you come up with like a model or a theory of how the world works.
Now,
and
the models are limited.
What do you mean by that?
Models have limitations.
Right. In what way?
Like, for example, if you built a model of the Earth, like, most likely not going to be to scale. Like,
right, exactly. Like, what do you mean? Like, if you have like the globe that's in your bedroom.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, the model is like some representation of the thing in real life, but there's, as you said, it has its limitations.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's all these observations about reality. There's some objective reality out there, and we have some concepts in our head and some like models and theories about how that works. And so long as like the theory or the model is making sense of all those facts and observations we're seeing, then it's good. It's helping us. It's useful.
Yeah.
But then we're discovering more and more, and then some new piece of evidence surfaces or some new observation comes up, and it doesn't coincide with the model. And so
you got to make a new one.
You got to make a new one to capture all the evidence we've discovered.
And then you go and repeat the process.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
So basically, like, all of these models that we have, they're all wrong. But some of them are useful.
For right now.
Yeah, like the flat earth theory is useful. It was, for the most part, pretty good, For the most part, you can generalize that the earth is like, for the most part, the curvature is not all that big, But some models are less wrong than others. So the sphere theory is more right than the flat earth theory, but it's more wrong than, the spheroid theory.
Yeah.
And this applies to everything, right? So it's not just, in Asimov's case, he was talking about humans understanding the earth. But
I can think of like a lot of other cases where you could be more wrong. Like when at the invention of mathematics, like when, or not invention, but like at the discovery of mathematics, where they were like figuring out how to do addition, they were like, oh yeah, 2 + 2 is 10. But then they looked a couple of years later and like, no, this is completely wrong. 2 + 2 is actually 8. But then they look again, and they could choose 6, and then they finally got to 4.
Right. So it's interesting you bring up math, because I think math is like the one thing that is outside of this situation. Because math is just entirely, math has no representation in the real world. Like, there's no math, what does it mean for like 2 + 2 = 4? These are just like abstract
Well, I
things.
can think of one concept in math that's in the real world. Which, Fibonacci sequence. That's in the world a lot. Like on pine cones, I think, was it? I don't remember, but it's in nature a lot.
Right, but you can say for this, you can take the same thing. You can say like 2 + 2 is 4, and like if you look at 2 apples and you add 2 apples, you get 4 apples, right? So that's the real world thing, but it's not really. It's like,
it's not a direct representation.
Yeah, because that's like a real world version of this abstract idea in your head. Because 2, like the concept of like 2 apples is a thing in the real world.
Yeah.
But like 2 is like just like this weird idea in your head. And so 2 + 2, because we've invented these rules of math, and so 2 + 2 is definitely 4, and that is right. But 2 + 2 is 5, that's wrong. So actually, like, I think, in my opinion, like, Asimov's idea of these relativity of wrong doesn't really apply to math. I think there are clear right and wrong answers in math.
There are always going to be like things people are going to get closer and closer to figuring out, but it will take a long time, if ever, going to figure out. But for the most part, I think you're right.
No, because I'm saying, like, if you have a math test, right?
Yeah.
You can't just say, well, 2 + 2 = 5 is less wrong than 2 + 2 = 6. I should get partial credit for this. I'm saying in math there are real answers to the questions, because it's as if math is like, if you come up with like a game, okay, and you say you invent the rules of the game, and you're, let's say the game's the rule, the rules of the game could be, if someone puts their hand in the air, they get 2 points. And so if someone puts in their hand in the air 3 times, I'm coming up with a ridiculous game, but if you put your hand in the air 3 times, you get 6 points.
Yeah.
That's the right answer. You've invented these rules of the game. They're not a real thing. It's just this weird thing that humans have come up with. And so in that world, there is a right answer. If you put your hand in the air 3 times, you're going to get 6 points. Right? But I'm saying that, like, science is trying to understand reality and what's actually out there, and that's different. And there can be shades of wrong there. There is, like, a relativity there. Am I making any sense?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I understand that now.
Like, when you invent your fake rules, you can come up with a situation where there is right and wrong.
Yeah.
But, like, real life is not like that. Is that what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I don't have much experience with, like, all the real world issues and problems because, you know, you're older than me and you have more experience with that. But, yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. So, basically, like, Asimov was talking about the shape of the Earth. And so it applies there. So all of those models are wrong. Some are less wrong than others. But it applies to everything. So, like, theory of gravity. Gravity is a model.
Yeah.
Right? And that also is wrong. Like, people think, like, oh, gravity is just this thing. Of course, it's like a law, right? But no, it's like, it's wrong. It's just really freaking good. And we can make amazing predictions based on it. And
we're
like,
not going to be completely 100% right. We can be,
yeah,
like,
there are going to be situations,
right,
like,
but...
even today, like, there are going to be situations where we don't understand what's going on. You know, like in the middle of a black hole. We don't really understand how gravity works there. You know? But our understanding is getting better and better. We're getting less and less wrong. Or like the theory of evolution, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that captures the evidence really well. But is it right? Is it 100% right? No, there are going to be areas where like we don't really understand what's going on and we need to continue and refine our understanding of evolution. To be clear here, I'm not saying that, like, you know, because people used to think God just came out and, like, created all these animals and all these species and they're unchanging. So, like, all the species and animals and plants you see today are the same as they were 1,000 years ago and 2,000 years ago, and they will be the same 10,000 years ago, 10,000 years from now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's what people used to think. And that's basically, if you translate that idea into the rate of change of genes and rate of change of species, it's basically true that, like, species are changing extremely slowly every 100 years, right? There isn't that much change. So it's very similar to, like, the flat earth idea, where the flat earth people are saying, like, the amount of curvature every mile is 0. And what the creative design people are saying, that God just created all these animals and there's no such thing as evolution, they're saying the rate of change among species is also 0.
Yeah.
And they're almost right, but they're wrong. Because there is change. It just happens on the order of hundreds of thousands of years, you know?
Yeah.
It takes a long time. And so in the span of a normal human life, you don't see that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that applies to everything.
Yeah, I also think modern technology has helped us advance a lot in those areas as well. Like, with all the technology we have today, like the taking a picture of a black hole, and, like, all that technology is helping us improve and being less wrong, but still wrong.
Right.
Like, for the gravity thing, we could make predictions about, like, how high something's going to bounce, like,
sure,
a rebound ratio, but we're not going to be 100% right because we don't know everything about gravity, and we're going to continue to get less wrong and less wrong over the years, but still be wrong. Like, we could have a 98% accuracy about determining it now, and in 100,000 years we could have a 99.8% accuracy of determining it.
Sure. Yeah. So, like, in your case, like, about, like, the rebound ratio of things, like, so before Newton came along and came up with his theories of gravity, like, we didn't have a good understanding of these things.
Yeah.
But then he came up with, like, what's called Newtonian mechanics, which talks about the behavior of objects in everyday life.
3 laws, right?
Yeah. And so, like, now, and after that, we had a really good understanding of that. And actually, it could tell you, like, amazing predictions of, like, if you throw this ball at this speed in this direction, how far is it going to go, what's it going to look like. You can figure out the behavior of like missiles really well, or cannonballs, how they're going to be flying, like all these different things, right? But his theory was wrong, because he was only observing things like apples falling off trees, right? That's the famous Newton example.
Yeah.
That, like, he saw an apple fall off a tree, and then he came up with this theory, right? And his theory is like mostly right about things that are happening in day-to-day life, but there are other areas of the universe where he didn't consider the possibilities. And so then when Einstein came along in the early 20th century, he showed that Newton was wrong in specific cases. So for example, if you start going at the speed close to the speed of light, like, things start to get really wacky, you know, and Newton's laws of gravity, like, can't really make predictions there, but Einstein's do, you know. So that's just like another.
And I bet Einstein was wrong.
Einstein was wrong too, because, like, I mean, we're still, I don't know, I'm not like a physicist or anything, but from my understanding is that, like, we still don't understand certain aspects of the universe. Like, there are weird places, like, what is dark matter, what is dark energy,
What is black hole?
What's going on in the center of a black hole? Yeah, how do these things behave? There's also this other thing called quantum physics, and no one knows how to, like, combine. There's all these theories and models about how quantum mechanics works, which talks about very, like, small things, basically like subatomic things, you know, like how do electrons behave. There's a whole set of, like, theories about how that works, and then there's a whole separate set of theories about how really fast, really big things work in space,
like
which is Einstein stuff. Okay, yeah, like things going at the speed of light, but those theories, like, don't mesh together well, and no one yet has figured out a way to combine them. So they're still working on that, you know.
Yeah, they're like parallel lines almost. Like, one line is one theory, one line is the other, and, like, they're gonna be parallel until someone, like, reevaluates, like, their equation per se, like, their theory, so that they can finally meet and have, like, an intersection where they mesh. But it'll still be wrong,
right?
Until we just have more and more of a good intersection. Like,
yeah.
And it'll intersect more and more and more, but ultimately it'll still be wrong forever.
Yeah, but less and less wrong.
Yeah.
And we can make better and better predictions. We have a better understanding. Anyway, I just thought it was really interesting. I like the way that, like, Asimov framed it, because I feel like people go through school and they're learning all these, like, facts and figures about science or something, but they don't understand, like, the basic idea of how this stuff works, and, like, how people understood this stuff, how this stuff evolved, you know, how our understanding evolved, how these things work, you know, what does right and wrong even mean, how do we figure out what, like, is real in the universe.
I'd find it really interesting if we were learning about the relativity of wrong in science class.
Yeah.
It'd be an interesting topic.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, me too. I think we're gonna end it there. That was pretty good.
What's the time? How far did we go? How many minutes was that?
I don't know. We're gonna have to see. But as always, thank you for listening to this podcast. We hope you enjoyed. Dan will be a regular member for the next couple weeks, and then he goes back to his hole. So yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you to Anchor for sponsoring this as always. Make sure to send us some voice messages if you want to be featured on the podcast, or support this podcast with a monthly donation to help make it better. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you later. Goodbye. Any final words?
No, thanks for having me. It was great.
Great.
Great pleasure.
Thank you for listening. Goodbye.